Hi, guys, good evening, and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host, Eddie, and in tonight's video, I'll be discussing what I thought of some news items that have been going around for the past 2 days from the world of Star Wars and Game of Thrones. So I wasn't too sure if I should do a video on this or not, but then I decided I ought to since I covered the original story more than a year ago. So it was more than a year ago. I think it might have been early or mid 2018 when it was announced former Game of Thrones showrunners D.B. Weiss and David Benioff had signed on to do a trilogy of films, of Star Wars films, right after they finished their work on Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, we haven't heard much about that until recently, and sadly, I mean, many people seem happy. Some people, like myself, are, kind of disappointed by the news because, I was probably one of the few people who actually liked the last season of Game of Thrones. I thought it had a pretty solid ending and wrap-up story for most of the characters and whatnot. I mean, I understand why people didn't like it, but I'm not going to get into that now. But I was just excited that these guys, who both have proven to be excellent storytellers, were going to tackle the Star Wars franchise next. And I was really excited when Emilia Clarke, the girl who played Daenerys Targaryen from the Game of Thrones, said that their films were going to be like Star Wars on acid, which was extremely exciting to me. But unfortunately, it looks like that is no longer the case, or at least it's not the case for the time being. They released an official statement the other day saying that due to the new the 9-figure deal they just signed with Netflix in creating original content for them, they unfortunately have no time on their schedule to both juggle a trilogy of Star Wars films along with creating and producing content for Netflix. So it seems like they went with Netflix over Disney. Now, some people have begun speculating and saying it's because Disney saw what they did and how they handled the final season of Game of Thrones, and maybe that's why that's why the two of them walked away from it. But that has yet to be officially confirmed. The only thing that is confirmed is that unfortunately, a trilogy of films from these two will not be coming to us anytime soon from the corner of the galaxy. But Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy herself said they understand and respect the decision of the two former showrunners and will welcome them back once their schedule and their time frees up and allows them to return to the Star Wars universe. So at least they're leaving the door open for their possible hopeful return. I mean, it's a similar situation when Warner Brothers originally cast Idris Elba, recasted him as the character of Deadshot, originally played by Will Smith in Suicide Squad, for the upcoming film The Suicide Squad. But that decision was reversed, and now Idris Elba will be playing a completely different character, mostly because Warner Brothers hopefully would like to have Will Smith return as the character Deadshot, return to the DC extended universe someday. So I'm hoping it's a similar situation here where maybe one of these days we will get a trilogy of Star Wars films, or at least one Star Wars film from these two guys. I would personally love to see that. Like I said, they were proven successful storytellers with rich, great characters and who can write awesome action-packed battle scenes as well. So I hope they do return one of these days, but in the meantime, there's a lot more Star Wars stuff to look forward to, like The Mandalorian. Moving on to other Game of Thrones topics, it was recently announced earlier today that unfortunately the pilot episode that they filmed earlier this year with actress Naomi Watts, which was going to be a Game of Thrones prequel set 1,000 years before the events of Game of Thrones ever occurred, was unfortunately scrapped by HBO, and the reason seems a little unclear. I've read a few reports saying that the production for the pilot or the first episode did not go very well, or perhaps it was viewed for some executives at HBO who didn't like what they saw. But unfortunately, whatever the case is, that show has now been scrapped and it will no longer be happening. It never got a full season order, just one pilot episode, which is too bad because some set photos leaked of Naomi Watts' character and she looked great and the premise sounded pretty intriguing too. So unfortunately, that show is no longer happening. However, there is a silver lining in all of this, as it was just announced earlier today, just like 2 or 3 hours ago, that another Game of Thrones prequel is happening. This one is called House of the Dragon, with the direct involvement of George R.R. Martin himself and several other big TV names. This will be a 10-episode first season, and it is set 300 years before Game of Thrones ever happens, and it will be following, yep, you guessed it, the Targaryen family. Whether or not this show shows them conquering and ruling Westeros, or if it shows them in another part of the world, remains to be seen. However, there is a silver lining in this. We lost one Game of Thrones show, but gained another. So that's pretty exciting. So those are my thoughts and feelings on it. I'm a little disappointed about the two former showrunners not writing and producing a trilogy of Star Wars films anymore. I was pretty bummed about that. Hopefully they still can one of these days. It'll only be a matter of time. And then too bad about the Naomi Watts show as well. But it was a bummer that we never got to see what could have been. But hey, at least we got a spin-off show about the Targaryen family, which sounds pretty exciting. So I hope you guys can take some comfort in that as well. So what are your thoughts and feelings on all of the topics that I covered? Are you excited or bummed out or relieved about any of the things I've talked about? I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions down below in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. There's no release date yet set for House of the Dragon. Stay tuned and subscribe to this channel and its Facebook page for more official news and updates. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.